We are here at ADA and I'm with T1D Exchange, Dave and Jaime. I want to hear all about what's new with your organization, what's going on here at ADA, and all the great stuff that T1D Exchange does. Let's start with that. What is T1D Exchange?
T1D Exchange is a real-world evidence and research organization focused solely on improving outcomes for people with type 1 diabetes. And we do it through a few different programs: our direct-to-patient registry, our quality improvement collaborative with endocrinology centers around the country, and engaging with community online. Those are the things that we really focus on.
What makes the work that you do meaningful on a personal level?
So I've lived with type 1 diabetes since I was 3 years old. That was the dark ages in 1983 with R and NPH insulin, right? And I've lived with type 1 my whole life. A couple of years ago, my son was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. We found him in early stage 2, so he was actually able to receive Tzield as a treatment. He's since then progressed on to using insulin, so we have 2 loopers in the house right now. And I'm really doing this for myself, for my son, and for everyone else who I've connected with, that live with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, what about you, Dave?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed 30 years ago. I worked in healthcare my whole career, but 20 years ago moved into the diabetes space and have been working in it exclusively. I also have a 17-year-old nephew who was diagnosed at 3, and thankfully it was one day of symptoms. His sister recognized what was going on and took him to the doctor and said, I think he has type 1. So, we're committed to it in the family, and the work we do at T1D Exchange is unbelievably gratifying to be able to combine what we know personally and use our professional skills and try to make a difference for other people.
Yeah, well, I want you to explain to everyone what the T1D Exchange registry is. I'm part of the registry. A lot of my listeners and followers are. Tell us a little bit about what the registry is and why it's so important for the work that you do.
Sure. So I'm the lead researcher for the T1D Exchange Registry. The T1D Exchange Registry, about 23,000 people with type 1 diabetes have joined. So that would be the largest registry in the United States for people living with type 1 diabetes who have consented in to participate in this ongoing research. In addition to studies that we conduct, we also work with a number of people in industry, pharmaceutical companies, med device companies who are interested in contacting people in our registry for additional research. We also work with academic collaborators. So when you enroll, you receive these annual questionnaires as well as additional study opportunities. We've also helped recruit for 25 clinical trials. So we work to try to bring new therapies to market in all different areas.
I want to talk about the T1D Exchange Quality Improvement Collaborative. So you're crowdsourcing information from all of these centers across the U.S. Tell us about that work and how it's impacted the work that you continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently it's about 65 of leading endocrinology centers, both pediatric and adult, in the U.S. And our purpose is to work collaboratively with providers from those centers to improve real-world outcomes. So we actually receive real electronic medical record data from those centers on a monthly basis, and we analyze that so we can put together information on almost 100,000 people who are cared for currently, type 1s, in the U.S., and we have that EMR data for about 70,000 of them. So really interesting trends and insights and characteristics of things that you might not be able to understand until you put that kind of size of information together. So we use that with them to help benchmark and help them improve outcomes, but also there's other kinds of research that we can do because we have that data. So it really is pretty incredible.
Well, and how has that program led to meaningful change?
Yeah. So we've worked on a number of important initiatives, like let's get more people on CGM. Let's get them sooner after diagnosis. Let's get people using AID systems. And again, let's try to get them on as soon as to diagnosis as possible. So the providers in all these centers do quality improvement work, which a lot of process mapping and different kinds of interventions that I won't go into, but the goal is let's test a change, we measure, see what's happening, and if it's working, scale it and spread it to other groups in the center and to other centers in the collaborative, and then publish it, share it online, and try to get people who aren't in our collaborative to at least benefit from the work that's been done by those centers and us.
But I think it's important to understand we know so much in type 1 diabetes, and sometimes we just don't act on it. And that's part of what this collaborative helps to do, is figure out what changes do we need to make in the healthcare systems, our processes, who we have on staff, how they work together. It's not really creating a new treatment or a new therapy. It's trying to figure out how do we use that more effectively and how do we make changes in processes so that that happens.
You know, we're here at ADA. I know you have a lot going on at this conference. Tell us a little bit about, all the things that T1D Exchange is involved with at this year's ADA.
So we have a number of 18 posters, multiple presentations, oral presentations describing the work that the centers in our collaborative are doing, as well as some of the research that we do ourselves at T1D Exchange with registry participants that Jaime leads. There's actually a couple big themes of this year would be screening for autoantibodies and monitoring patients and trying to operationalize getting people into studies or onto treatments that are available. AID systems, getting people to take them sooner. We've had really good results, shaving off months and getting more people to get on AID systems. And then there are interesting things going on in areas like GLP-1 usage in type 1, which it's unbelievably compelling what that has been able to do for people with type 1. And there are some treatments in the works and indications for type 1 being pursued by companies that we're very excited about.
What about AID systems? What are you seeing there?
There's a broadening of AID use, obviously. One of the QI projects that we do, the providers have implemented an alert system in the electronic medical record in this particular project where if somebody's not on diabetes technology, a pop-up comes up and the doctor has to make a decision, am I prescribing an AID system? And if I'm not, why not? And they literally are forced to select a reason as to why they're not doing it.
Wow.
The evidence is there. All type 1s could benefit from being on an AID system. So they've seen really amazing results on boosting the percent of people who are using the AID systems and gathering good information as to why not. Why did the patient not want it? Did the provider think they weren't a good candidate? What was really the reason? So that's something that we're hoping we can expand beyond the 7 centers in this current initiative to a broader set of people soon.
And I know there's been some movement in women's health as well. Could you expand on that a bit too?
So there's been a lot of improvements in women's health over the years. We have more evidence of how to treat pregnancy in women that have type 1 diabetes. Recently, Tandem has the first approved pump for use in pregnancy, so that's great news. And we presented some interesting data. Perimenopause is actually a challenging time period for women with type 1 diabetes. A lot of the hormones are changing, and those hormones are related to insulin sensitivity and therefore insulin dosing. So we did a survey study asking women about what their most challenging symptoms were during this time period, and sleep was number 1 at 60%. We also found that 90% of women made some changes to their diabetes management during perimenopause. So only 10% of people didn't make any changes. So there's a lot of things happening, and we need to focus a lot more research in this area so that women feel supported and their endocrinologists don't say, I don't know what you're talking about when they go to the office.
Yeah, and when it comes to screenings, screening has been coming up a lot in the last few years. You yourself, your family was impacted by screening. It helped you all out. What are you seeing with screening this year?
Yeah, so that's been a big focus within the Quality Improvement Collaborative is how to operationalize screening and monitoring in a center where, again, they're building it from scratch in most cases. So part of the work that we do is really people doing the work, documenting what's working, creating implementation guides, changing screens or flow sheets within and smart forms within Epic so that we can gather the information about who's being screened, what were the results, what kind of characteristics are there with them, and then that data we're planning to kind of bring into T1D Exchange on a pooled basis from all the centers after they make these changes. But really, we have to get more and more people screened. Yeah. There are so many family members, people with autoimmune conditions who are at elevated risk, which we have to tackle first. Then we can worry about screening the general population. But there are lots of people that haven't been screened that should. And a number of us at T1D Exchange who live with type 1, we've all been screening our kids and trying to get the word out to people that we know. But these centers are really doing a great job. And we actually have a white paper that the centers worked on and put together that's available online so that other clinicians can learn from the pioneering work that they're doing and kind of blazing the path to implement screening and monitoring at a broad scale.
Interesting. T1D Exchange, it's built off data. And I'm very curious, we're in an age right now where data, AI, it's huge. It's all happening right now. I'm curious, what do you see the future of AI and data being, and especially as it relates to T1D Exchange?
Yeah. Well, I'll give one example about our electronic medical record data and the power of applying some of these advanced techniques to a large set of data. We have machine learning algorithms that can be applied to predict who might be more at elevated risk of developing a complication like DKA or severe hypo, or being at risk for an A1C rise in a relative short time frame. And so there are things that can be done to intervene if you know who those people are. So we've had some centers who have developed some of these techniques on their own data. We're looking at applying things broadly to the whole pool, and so that maybe some centers that aren't as equipped to do this themselves, maybe T1D Exchange can help deliver some insight and help them identify the patients that are really at a higher risk so that they can focus their efforts on that in kind of a population health management approach.
So I want to hear, for those listening, how can they get involved? How can they be a part of the T1D Exchange story and all the work that you're doing?
Sure. Well, I'd really encourage people with type 1 diabetes or caregivers of children with type 1 diabetes to, go to our website. It's very easy to find. Right at the top, it says people with diabetes. Click on that. And it goes through all the different ways that people can enroll in our studies, follow us on social media to see our research results, and engage with us on different social media platforms. So I'd encourage everyone to sort of do that if you're living with type 1.
And I would also add, for companies that are working in the type 1 space and want to learn more, join us on doing important work together. Contact us, go to the website as well. We all need to work together in order to make outcomes improve and hopefully at one day cure this disease. And certainly we know there's some companies working on that, and we work with them on important projects like Vertex as an example. Love to work with more companies and help advance their products, give them insights, and really try to make a difference.
Well, Dave, Jaime, thank you so much. And if you want to learn more, head over to t1dexchange.org.